Hey, welcome to one more video in the intermediate Minesweeper strategy series I'm doing. And in this one, I'm going to talk briefly, I think, about a strategy that is very helpful as long as you're not trying to go super fast, but will definitely help you win more games if that's your goal. And then I'm going to talk about one more corner pattern that comes up a decent amount and can be extremely helpful when it does. All right, so first we have here obviously a game that I'm in the middle of playing, and down here we have a situation that comes up a lot. There's it can come in various different guises. This one has threes all over, but the important part is that there's these four squares down here that are all covered, that you don't know what they are, and it turns out that if you just think about it, there are, four, it's late and I'm tired. 4 different scenarios, if that's wrong, we'll find out soon, that could possibly be here. There might just be one mine in all of these, and it's that one. And all of these other ones are clear. Or it could be 2 mines, and it's those 2. And that same one is still a mine, but now it's these 2 that are clear. Or it could be 2 mines going the other way, and that one's clear, and that one's clear. And the last possibility is that it could be 3 mines like that. And just looking at this, there's obviously no way to know from the outside, but it turns out if you play the whole rest of the game and you come back to this corner, you almost always will have enough information to actually be able to determine which of those 4 situations is here. And pro tip, if you are trying to go fast, and sorry, real quick, that is why it's not the best strategy necessarily if you're trying to just speed through and you're kind of getting to the pro level and want to just, click, click, click without thinking almost at all. Because you're going to have to, if you do this strategy, you're going to have to recognize this down here and then go play the whole rest of the game. This is an expert-sized board, and then come back and figure out which one is right and click the right squares. So it's not necessarily the very fastest strategy, but if you just want to win more games and figure out where the mines are, which is my personal preference, then it's great. So the gist is, from just the logic of the board, again, you don't know which of those 4 scenarios we're looking at. But if you look up here, we have the number of mines that are left that you haven't marked yet. So if you mark one more mine, obviously goes down to 73, mark another mine, 72, expert starts with 99 mines. And as you keep playing, you'll obviously be getting more and more mines marked, and hopefully by the end of the game, if you haven't made any mistakes, you will have at most 3 up here. In this game, we've already got a bit of a problem because in this corner, we're going to have to guess. I tend to prefer to guess the corner, but for marking purposes, we can just mark that now and pretend that it's the mine and get down to 69 and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, if you've completed the whole rest of the board and marked all the mines, sorry to the people who prefer non-flagging, this method obviously will not work for you. But when you get back to this corner, you will have either 1, 2, or 3 as the number left here. Because again, remember the scenarios are just 1 mine, 2 mines like this, or 2 mines like that, or 3 mines. Obviously, it can't be all 4 because this 1 would be touching 2 mines, and this 2, which is a disguised one because it's already touching 1, etc. So it can either be 1, 2, or 3 mines. Pro tip, if you are trying to go as fast as possible and you recognize this and you don't want to come back and play, look at how many mines are left, or if you don't flag or whatever, the best bet by far is to guess that that is a mine and go from there. Just because of the way, I think, statistically, that mines, the density, average density of a board, it's much more likely for there just to be one mine in this cluster here than to have three for sure, and decently more still even than the likes of having two. And even if there are two mines, there's a 50-50 shot that it's this scenario anyways, so if you guess that that's a mine, you'll be able to figure it out then, no matter what. So rule of thumb, if you don't want to do any of this analysis, just guess that that's a mine. But obviously if you get down to this corner, you've played the rest of the board, and there's only a 1 here, as there very often will be, like I said, then you can just mark that one as the mine and go. And if there's 3, then you can mark those, and you know that that one's safe, and you're done with the game. And if there's 2, then at that point it is a complete 50-50. It could be this, it could be this, doesn't matter what you guess. Sorry. And again, I kind of like to guess that corners are mines, just, you know, to have a default rule so that I'm not wasting time doing nothing that's not going to help me. But just guess, doesn't matter, and hopefully you get it right. But like I said, usually it will actually be the case that this is the mine, whether it's because it's just 1 most often, or it's 2 here, that will often be the mine. But the point is, if you have played the whole game and finished the board other than a corner here, knowing how many mines are left can give you oftentimes the exact information you need to know absolutely that one's a mine, or absolutely these 3 are mines. So just because you don't know right away down in this corner what to do, that doesn't mean that you will have to guess if you play the rest of the board and number your mines right. So just for fun, I haven't obviously played the whole rest of this board, but let's see if my rule of thumb works. If not, you should unsubscribe and never watch another video of mine. Hey, there it is. Like I said, it's usually that one right there that is the mine. The only other thing I'll say very briefly about that, although I think I promised the last one would be brief, this is a general principle about counting how many mines are left. Oftentimes there will be a bit larger of a section here that in a corner somewhere that you don't know exactly which mines are which, and just from logic and looking directly at that local part of the board, you can't. But if you can figure out how many mines are left in the entire board, oftentimes in that situation, you can say, oh, there's 3 mines left. And if, say, you know, that one's a mine, then there have to be 4 mines in this whole configuration, just from how it works out logically. And so if that's the case, if that one's a mine, then there have to be 4 total, then you know that that one is not a mine because there's only 3 left. So hopefully that makes sense. Just that general principle of figuring out how many mines are left can surprisingly often help you figure it out, or at least make a very educated guess. Okay, for the last segment of this intermediate strategy video, I'm going to talk about 2-2-2 corners. So when you have a corner here that obviously has a 2 in the very corner and a 2 on the side, so a 2 in the corner with 2s next to it on each side, turns out you can figure out pretty decently some interesting stuff. The pattern to notice here is that when you have this 2-2-2, the outcome is you can mark that one and that one as mines, and you can mark this one in the corner, diagonal from the 2, as safe. So how the heck do we know that? Again, let me walk you through the logic. I think, for me at least, that always helps me understand better why something is happening. So I think the easiest way to start is to do, if you're a mathematician, a proof by contradiction. As I said, that square is not going to be a mine, but let's pretend that it is and see what would happen. So this 2 would already be touching one mine, which means that at most one of these could be a mine. It might be this one, might be that one, but it certainly can't be both, because then that 2 would be touching 3 mines. So at most one of these is. We don't even know for sure if one of them is, because maybe it's one over here that this 2 is touching. But let's focus here. One of these at most can be a mine. So that means that this 2 here will already be touching a mine there, and that one would have to be a mine, which it turns out is true. But the point being that now with that 2 touching one mine, we know for sure that one of these is, because that 2 is touching one already, but it needs to be touching one more, and these 2 covered squares are the only other 2 that it's touching. So that would mean that this 2 would be touching its full 2 with that one that we're assuming is a mine, and one of these 2 that is another mine. So great, that 2 is touching 2, this 2 is touching 2, and what's the problem so far? Well, it comes when you try to go now this way. This 2 will be touching all of its 2 within these 3 covered squares. That means that none of these 2 can be, because this 2 is touching those 2 covered squares, but it's already touching 2 mines over here. So that's not a mine, and that's not a mine. So this 2 cannot be touching any mines there. So at most, it could be touching 1 there, but it can't be touching 2, because one of these, if it were a mine, would mean that this 2 is now touching 3, because remember, we decided that one of these had to be a mine. So I don't know if that made the most sense, but if you think about it and work through it, I think that's the easiest way to go about it. Think about how if this corner 1 were a mine, try to find a pattern that could fit, whether it's that and that, or this and this, or whatever you want to try. It won't work. So satisfy yourself with that and know that this one cannot be a mine. And then it follows pretty easily that if that one's not, then again, these 2 can't both be for the same reasons, because then neither of these could be, and that 2 would only be touching 1 covered square that could be a mine, and it needs to be touching 2. So one of these, and not 2, is a mine, which means that this 2 has to be touching its second one there in that 3rd square. And same thing going that direction, so that's a mine, and bloody hell, tapped the wrong one, and I've made this video too long, but you see that the one I meant to tap was not a mine. So there you go. I don't feel like doing this video over, and now you see how lazy of a human being I am. But hopefully that gives you a bit more ammunition for trying to solve Minesweeper boards. It turns out that even beyond just looking at the colors and the numbers directly on the board, going up and even thinking about how many mines are left can give you some very important information about what possible combinations are left on the board. I showed you what is the most common by far when you have 4 covered squares down in a corner, and it could be 1 mine, 2 mines in 2 different combinations, or 3 mines. And as I said, pro tip, usually it's just the 1 mine, but obviously it could be the other. So if you want to make sure, go ahead and finish the rest of the board and come back to that corner. And then if you have a 2-2-2 corner, don't do like I did. Click on the one kitty corner to the two in the very corner, and that one will not be a mine. And you can mark both of these as mines. As we see, they correctly are marked. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully you are clicking the right mines, unlike me, or clicking the right squares, unlike me, so that you don't click a mine. And please let me know if you have any questions, want to learn anything else specific, or just want to say hello. Please subscribe if you haven't already, if these videos interest you, and keep up the good work.